What's going on, Z Community Cuties? It's your boy Azizz Finance, and welcome back to the Personal Finance in Canada show, also known as the PFC show. Whether you've been listening to our podcast for a while now, or this is your first time, be sure that you're either following or subscribe to the pod, and share this with somebody who you think will also get value from this podcast as well. Now, without further ado, let's get this party started and dive into the episode. By listening to the PFC show, the Personal Finance in Canada show with Azizz Finance, you acknowledge and agree that me, Azizz Finance, assume no responsibility for any financial decision or decisions that you make, as it is ultimately your finances and you are the only controller of your own decisions. I am a random person on the internet and not a financial professional, so please consult with one being a financial professional before making any financial-based decision, because anything that you hear on this podcast, overall, each and every single episode, is just a sharing of my experience and are not suggestions whatsoever, regardless of the types of language or words that I use within these episodes. Again, by listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that I assume no responsibility for any decisions that you make regarding your finances. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about how much you should have within your emergency fund. Now, if you don't know what this is, it's pretty straightforward. It's just a stash of cash that you do not touch unless unexpected things come along, such as health emergencies, job loss, or even, situations like COVID. Now, who should set up an emergency fund? Well, let me reiterate this. EVERYONE. Every single person should have an emergency fund, and I cannot stress this enough. Regardless of how much you make, how much you spend, or whatever your situation is, whether you're living at home with your parents, whether you're out, you should always have an emergency fund regardless of the situation. Because at the end of the day, we're all prone to unexpected things because we never really know what life is going to throw at us. So it's better to stay prepared rather than getting caught with our pants down. I would personally suggest building an emergency fund as soon as possible and prioritize this before the unexpected nature of these emergencies pop up in your life. Firstly, I would recommend paying off any debts that you might have first before beginning to set up your emergency fund, or you can kind of do both of them at the same time, obviously with more of a priority on paying off your debts. Now, when it comes down to actually building your emergency fund, very high level overview because we're going to get into this a lot more with next week's episode. But essentially, your emergency fund can be made up of either essential expenses only or your month-to-month expenses overall, or what some people even like to do is just take whatever their monthly income is and then multiply it by a specific amount. It should be no surprise to you that after 9 years of being within the stock market, whether that be stocks, ETFs, options, I've actually managed to create full-time income and being able to retire at any time that I please. Nonetheless, there's actually a way that you can learn how to do this as well, and this is exactly why we offer coaching. We do one-on-one sessions with each of our clients just to kind of get them on the right path so that they could eventually replace their full-time income with the stock market. Not only do we do coaching for that, but we also do coaching when it comes down to making sure that your credit score is optimal and for other types of topics within the finance world. Budgeting, saving, you name it, we'll take care of it. So whenever you have the chance, and this is something that you could be interested in, check out azizzfinance.ca and check out our resources. AZIZZ finance.ca, and I am more than happy to coach you through the right direction. Anyway, back to the episode. Now, because these emergency funds are pretty hefty, I always recommend people to kind of take baby steps with their emergency fund by focusing on building a 1-month emergency fund. Then once you get that, then do a 3-month emergency fund. Once you get to 3 months, I feel like this is honestly a pretty fair amount to have because usually if unexpected things happen, you're usually able to bounce back after those 3 months. But some people like to be more safer than sorry. Another technique that you might even take on is first focus on building an emergency fund that only consists of your essential expenses first. Then once you hit that milestone, then move up to an emergency fund that is for your total expenses. And then once you hit that milestone, then do something that is maybe based on your monthly income and then multiply it by 3 so that you get up to 3 months. Now again, I feel that 3 months is sufficient, although if you are feeling that you want to take the entrepreneurial route and, thinking of quitting your job just to grind out your business or your side hustle or whatever it is until you get profitable, then I would actually recommend having an emergency fund that covers 6 to 12 months worth of expenses. And the only reason I say that is because a lot of people think, entrepreneurship is so fun, unicorns, rainbows, and all that. But the reality of it is, when it comes down to entrepreneurship, starting your own business, it is very hard to get profitable. Assuming that, you're going to reinvest everything back into the business and then kind of pay yourself last, which is why I say anywhere from 6 to 12 months. And I'll even share a personal story with you guys in terms of how important this emergency fund really is. But in the beginning, when COVID all started going down, basically my job was at a threat. And essentially the entire workforce was being cut off one by one, even 2 people at a time at one point. And luckily I wasn't actually cut off of the roster, but there was a very high potential for me to do so. Because I kind of saw this threat coming through, I did decide to leave the country, go overseas for a few months. But luckily, because I was prepared, I had an emergency fund set aside. I was actually able to spend that while I was overseas. Ended up coming back to Canada, and believe it or not, still had a emergency fund that had a solid amount. So these emergency funds can actually be extremely useful, even if you want to just go on a few months of vacation and just kind of chill out from the work environment and stuff. It could definitely help out, especially when you're grinding out other things such as a side hustle or a business. Alright, Z community, that's pretty much it for today's episode. Now again, if you did find value from this, be sure that you're either following or subscribed to the podcast so that you're up to date with new episodes that are going to come your way. On top of that, if you feel like either your friend, your parents, your grandma, your grandpa are going to benefit from this episode or this overall pod, be sure you swing it their way, because at the end of the day, it could just be a nice little early Christmas gift or something. But nonetheless, guys, it's your boy Azizz Finance signing out. I'll see you guys on the next one.